Hi, I'm Seamless, and today I'm going to show you the latest version of the drum and bass track that I'm working on. And then I'm also going to talk about some of the mixing concepts that I employed, and also some of the mixing mistakes that I made, and why I'm keeping them, and why it's best not to do them in the first place. But I'm just going to show you the track. This is the track. This whole thing is the intro. That made a lot of weird noise. Okay, this whole thing is the intro. This is the drop. This is the end. This is the end of. I mean, I haven't made the second drop and the outro and all that, whatever. Bleh. This is the track, and I haven't like it. Okay, so let's talk mixing. So in order to properly explain all this, I'm gonna have to go over my process. So whenever I start any track, first thing I do is I make a bass sound. In this case, it was that one, which has a filter engaged. Indeed. So I made a bass, and then I'm like, okay, that sounds neat. So what does that sound like to a beat? And then I made a beat, which is not making any sound right now because the automation currently is off for everything. And stuff. And then once I have the beat and the bass, I proceed to do a premix. The premix is usually I bus all the drums into the drum mix. I bus everything that's not the drums into the side, where I proceed to sidechain it by the kick and the snare, or just the kick if it's electro track, because it's, just doof, 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 doof the whole track. And then I also put a compressor on the master, and I put an EQ just to do the 30 hertz and below cut. And then all this is all stuff I did later. But that's basically how I make that. And the whole reason why I do that in the beginning is because whenever I make a new sound, I have the premix to color it, and that means that I can make the sound and not have to worry about like if I mix it later and then everything changes because of how I mix it or how it's mastered, I suppose. Then the sound will change. I have to worry about fixing it, but I don't have to do that because I've done it already, and so that means I can work in that environment. And that's good. Now, what I did different for this track is that in the side channel, I also compressed it like I did the drum bus. So not only are all the synth elements being sidechained, they're then just being compressed together again, and that makes everything way thicker. Yeah, so that's all very well and good, and then I bring it, and it goes into the master, and that's fine. But in lots of my tracks, you notice that I like to drive things really hard and compress everything to be extremely heavy all the time. I like my music to be very, very heavy, and that's fine. That's also a personal opinion of mine. But one of the ways that I accomplish this is that things I use the multi-band compressor so that it compresses the individual frequency bands, and that's a whole separate tutorial about why that's awesome. But Maximus and also the Fruity Limiter, if you don't have Maximus, has the option to engage soft saturation, and when you do that, instead of it being a nice like sloping curve, like this is the bass, and it's being normally compressed. So like watch it for a second. See these lines here indicate the compression. That's how far. That's when it's getting pushed down to keep it all below 0 dB, because that's where I put the ceiling. That's what this graph indicates here. This is the in-out graph. So as the in hits above 0 dB, it's all being crushed to 0 dB, and over here, as it is in at any amount, it's coming back out 1 to 1. So that's fine. That's what that is. That's the rate. That's how like the rate, like ratio and stuff like that. That's what that means. So, however, in these guys, you see that there's not really a whole lot of compression. In fact, there's a little bit of gain, like ratio increase going on, and yet it's still being crushed down to 0 dB. The purple is the input sound, and then the lightly colored ones are the output sound. And as you can see, it's more plainly in the master. I have a bit of a combination going on. I don't want it to be too heavy, although sometimes that works too. But you notice that all throughout what I'm doing there, it's being kept at 0 dB. So that means that it's not going to peak, and it's going to be loud as hell. So what's the possible downsides to this? Is that soft saturation is a type of distortion, or it's used as a type of distortion, but basically it's distorting. Like it's it's clipping, but without clipping. It's clipping slightly softer, so but still a type of distortion. And this is very it's slight. It's a high frequency distortion, so it's kind of like colors the sound a little bit. But I have 3 instances of this going on right now. And in the bass sounds, they're already being I mean, the whole reason why this works is because almost every sound that I have in these tracks are already distorted. So the extra distortion is not noticeable. Whereas if I were to do, say, a metal track like I have done, and like I had a nice, like a high flying solo guitar, if that were to be soft saturated clipped at 0 dB, it would show up as like clipping distortion. That's what it would sound like, and it doesn't sound very good. But for this stuff, it's great. But and like the main bass here, this is being distorted through its own distortion, and then it's being compressed with its own multi-band compressor at its highest setting, which I have to imagine involves a little bit of distortion. Then it's going into the side, being distorted again, multi-band, and then going out the master, being distorted again, and then also being crushed up against the drums. So that means that even if I were to put in like a normal sine wave, it would come out distorted, which is important to keep in mind. And it's also important that I have all of this running while I'm producing the track, because it means that if I were to do something like put in a sine wave, I would know that it would come out weird, and I would have to take steps to prevent that. That's usually why when you see some of my tracks where I have like cleaner elements in like the choruses, like Menagerie. I do this. I have a cleaner chorus and also a guitar solo, and I have two master compressors running. One is super clippy, huge, loud, and the other is only normal compression, so that there's no distortion. There's no compression related distortion. However, then if you do that, then you have to play the normal compression game where you got to balance, your ratios and your release and your attacks so that you don't get artifacts and make it real obvious and noob sounding, which is not a lot of fun. The drums are universally, I always just crush them to hell because that's how I like it. Anyway, mistakes I made. So you see how I have a whole bunch of harmers here? Most of these are basses. Some of them are effects and like weird ambient stuff, but most of them are basses. And some of them are even clones of each other. And that's because, like, for example, I had this main bass, and actually, that's not the main bass, that's the second bass. Case in point, I made that second bass as a clone of the main bass, which I don't even know where it is anymore. Whatever. One of those is the main bass, and I had a main bass, and I wanted to make that one, but not that one. I wanted to make it a little bit different. So instead of being smart and cloning the effects insert that I have here, the mixer, I just cloned the harmor and then put it in another insert and then route it into that insert. Now, so that means that like I have that as a starting bass, and then I would just go and like pre-EQ that one and put some effects on it, and then it would be affected by that also. So I create this unnecessarily complicated effects chain for no reason. No smart reason anyway. And the whole reason why I'm keeping that now is because I got to a decent enough place with it that I'd have to do some pretty heavy deconstruction and then reconstruction to make that work in a single insert, which I could do, but I'm lazy. I don't feel like doing it. And it would have just been much smarter of me not to do this in the first place. But that sound, again, is being affected by all this crap as it makes its way out to the master in the mix. And that colors how I am working with it and what I think it's doing. And how, like right now though, because I have all this mixing going on while I'm producing it, it's doing, like what I hear it doing is what it's going to do when this track is done. It'll sound like that the whole time, which is very important. Did I have any other points to make? Whatever. Anyway, this track is going to be available for purchasing with the pay what you want model, because like it's not going to go in FL11 like Anticoder is. And also someone asked me why I have the Monster Cat logo in my background image on my channel, and that's because I'm a member of the YouTube network. That actually has nothing to do with their label. I'm not on their label. I have nothing released by them. And this basically means that I'm partnered with their ad network, which is not YouTube's or Google's ad network. So that's all that means. If you have any questions about stuff that I said just now, ask me, and I will answer them if I didn't make any sense, which I guess is totally possible because this track is organized in a way that's not very organized. Yeah. And I hope you like this track when it's done. Yeah. So, yeah.